Hi, I'm Greg, and this is Castro on Culture, where I talk about whatever I want. With the Odyssey coming out, I wanted to rank all of Christopher Nolan's films. Really, there's only 6 that I think are actually completely good. So to keep this from being totally negative, I've brought in a rugged, morally gray, individualistic man's man, my longtime friend Alex Guyton. He happens to be a huge Christopher Nolan fan, and so he's going to rank the films alongside me and try to argue their merits. We'll see if he changes my mind. Stay tuned.
What is Christopher Nolan's best movie?
The one I'm promoting. I mean, that's how that works, right?
Let's begin at our number 12. Alex will say his, and then I'll say mine, and then we'll typically talk about mine, although Alex wants to start with his number 12. But I suspect our number 12 will be the same, but maybe I'll be surprised. So go ahead. What's your number 12?
My number 12, and it's not even that it's bad, it's just feels like an etude, a study on what he will go on to do is Following.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, if you've got any questions, then.
Why not 2?
I do think it's bad, but like I appreciate how good it is for what it is. I think that the story is good. I think it's a fun idea. This writer who follows people around to get story ideas, but he kind of follows the wrong guy one day, and that guy turns out to be a serial burglar and starts to teach him about burgling, and our writer sort of gets pulled into that and becomes a burglar himself. And then they meet this woman who they burgled, who is dating a drug pornographer kingpin. But then she also starts dating our writer, of course. So in terms of like Nolanisms, yeah, it's noir, it's black and white. He shot it on film. That's what's impressive about it, is he shot it on film, and to save money, they rehearsed and just did a few takes. It's a coherent, visually legible story.
The dialogue between Jeremy Theobald and Lucy Russell as the blonde. Flash forward 25 years to Oppenheimer. Cillian Murphy and Florence Pugh flirting is this like rat-a-tat back and forth, and that's how Nolan does flirting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this was back in the late 90s, and he was doing this.
Okay, yeah, very good point. Okay, maybe we can track that. I'll say like his flirting does not ever land for me. He's a nerd. He's a technical nerd, film nerd. And he's had this very, God bless him, he's had this relationship with Emma Thompson, his girlfriend at this time already, and then about to be, and then eventually wife and still wife. I mean, he locked her down, but he's I don't think he's a ladies' man. I don't think he is like a natural flirt.
He's a handsome man, I think, especially in his youth.
I don't know about that.
He's got this, he's got the style. It's interesting to track who, from the 3 pre-Batman Begins features, Following, Memento, and Insomnia, who shows up, because I think it ends up being like one person from each film, and it's a very random person. And for Following, it is Jeremy Theobald, who I think they're just like mates, right? I think they're friends, because it's
they must be.
You're in your late 20s shooting, your $6,000 feature in.
Feature. It's an episode of Black Mirror. It's 70 minutes long.
Yeah.
This movie is already like non-linear. I don't think the non-linearity adds much to this.
I agree. I think it's unmotivated.
Yeah, I think this is a good warm up for the rest of his filmography, but I wouldn't recommend anybody go watch it unless you really want to have seen his full filmography. All right, go ahead and give us your number 11.
All right, number 11, Insomnia.
Wow. Okay, I have it a good bit higher. My number 11 is The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
Where do you have that?
Next.
Okay. All right. So we're pretty close on this one.
My mother warned me about getting into cars with strange men.
This isn't a car.
So I hate this movie. I am a big Batman fan, clearly. And I loved the Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. And I really think it's always a mistake when an actor dies to not recast them. People sometimes see that as disrespectful, I think. But to me, the bigger bummer is to let their death also sort of impact the art and kill their character too, basically, and not let that character live on. So Nolan's talked about how he didn't even see The Dark Knight as like the Joker movie, which is, really crazy to us as viewers, but he really wanted the third movie to be like the Joker movie. And I just forever will wonder, if he didn't see The Dark Knight as the Joker movie, what would this third film have turned out like? And I could have seen, ironic, I think you could have cast like Joaquin Phoenix to like play that version of the Joker and carry the torch. In The Dark Knight Rises, we get this very cobbled together, very Frankenstein of a movie that never works for me and is super unsatisfying as a sequel to The Dark Knight. The promise of the end of The Dark Knight was that he's going to keep on protecting Gotham. And instead, no, he retired for like 20 years or however long it was. The fun of Batman, the fun of most superheroes is that they have serialized adventures, many adventures. This really caps this Bruce Wayne's career to where it's like his only adventures were the ones we saw. So his Batman career is very brief. So I hate that decision. This movie's based off of two comics, really. Nightfall, which is the first Bane comic where he breaks Batman's back, and No Man's Land, which is where Gotham suffers an earthquake and is cordoned off by the government, and it becomes this crazy little fiefdom where each villain has their own neighborhood and Batman has to stop them. Those are both not great comic books, but the ideas are fun. Here, they just take anything that's fun about it and like it up. So Bane is like he's not a great character in the comics, but he visually is cool at least. He's this big Latino dude with a luchador mask and green running through his veins. You don't get the fun mask. You don't get the fun drug. You just get this like Saw mask and an infamously bad accent choice that was all Tom Hardy's doing, that Christopher Nolan should have been, I think, a more decisive director and told him, yeah, that's not working. They do show, one of my favorite parts is when Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow makes a cameo return and is like holding court over his own little corner of the city. If they had done this later in the franchise or set up more villains beforehand, it would have been fun to see, each villain ruling over their own neighborhood, but you don't get that really at all in this. And then there's just all of the infamously stupid writing. Anne Hathaway's Catwoman is, I think, actually maybe the best on-screen Catwoman as far as really capturing the sexiness and cheekiness and moral ambiguity of the comic book character. I love her first appearance where she kicks the cane out from under Bruce Wayne and flips out of the window. That is like quintessential Catwoman. But her overall plot of wanting this computer program that will wipe her from all databases on the planet is just very silly for such a grounded universe. And then beyond that, people talk about how stupid it is that the cops are like all going down into the sewers to be trapped, how stupid it is that they just run at the terrorists with guns. We don't really know how much time passes for Bruce Wayne's back to heal, but it can't possibly be enough. And I just don't find anything interesting in the prison and the pit with him. In general, through all the Batman movies, he is the least interesting character, but he's at least enjoyable in the other two, and in this, he just gets nothing. So yeah, I'll always just remember it for being supremely disappointing. I liked it when I first saw it in the theater. I was still pretty young and more easily entertained, but I've only sort of grown to dislike it over the years. I think it's genuinely a bad movie, a stupid movie. And I think no one wants to admit that because it's Nolan and the production value is massive. So, it's hard to see through all of that and like really think about it and just admit to yourself how stupid it is. One last thing, I've always hated how Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is like, oh, my real name's Robin. And it's like, that's not Robin's real name. Robin's real name is like Dick Grayson or Jason Todd or Tim Drake. It's like if he was like, oh, my last name is like John Batman. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's not a fun Easter egg for the fans because it's like incorrect. But then even that, that beat just doesn't work because he's going to go be Batman now, even though he's had absolutely no real training. It just rings really hollow. Bruce has left him all this stuff and he's not even going to like really know how to implement it. So yeah, that's how I feel about The Dark Knight Rises.
I agree with you on a lot of parts. I was the most hyped for this movie that I've ever been for a movie in my life. I loved all the marketing. I collected magazine covers. I was fully on board, and I think like you, over time, it's worn me down. My hot take about this movie is that it should have been, and I think it would have had permission to be 2 movies. This was around the time when part 2s, were all the rage.
Yeah. Harry Potter.
Breaking Dawn, Harry Potter, and I think this is actually one that earns it. The reason I say so is in the third act, and kind of actually an irony given how Nolan, I think pretty masterfully explores and manipulates time. This is the biggest instance of it getting away from him, is that we lose all sense of time. Once the ticking time bomb is introduced, it literally becomes like a montage of we're jumping from months to days to hours to minutes. You blink and it's like D-Day. It's like the bomb's gonna explode in 2 hours, and you're like, wait, it was 3 months, 15 minutes ago. I would have loved to have seen it take its time with a part 1 ending on the breaking of the back, and then part 2 opening on Gotham being isolated. I think living in an occupied Gotham with a 2.5-hour movie devoted to that would have been awesome.
Yeah. So your number 10 is The Dark Knight Rises.
Yes.
My number 10 is Interstellar.
Interstellar for me is 9. We're one off. And I think the conversation about this movie is very interesting because I remember when it first came out, it had noted flaws, I feel from critics and the audience. Now we're a dozen years on, and I feel not only does this movie place in people's tops for Nolan, it's tops movies of all time all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Which, again, to me, it's a bit like The Dark Knight Rises, is that there are parts in The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar where it's I don't really want to watch those parts. It's almost should I skip Anne Hathaway's monologue about love being a literal force of nature?
Yeah.
It's cool. It just doesn't land. It's just, I don't know. It's just something about the parts forming the whole that don't come together for me. And I say this as someone who, I love the planet with the giant waves. I think the time dilation is a very cool concept that he does explore pretty well. The way they modeled it, actually led to real, scientific usable data. And again, it is a monumental film. It is huge. The score is huge. The stakes are huge. But there's just something about the emotion that doesn't ring true. And I think it's interesting. I know in that Anne Hathaway love is a force of literal nature monologue, I remember reading an interview or listening to an interview where she said they really struggled with that scene in production, really finding the tone. I think initially they were doing something very big, a real acclamation, but then they found what they thought to be best is her kind of just plainly stating it something she's always known. And I wonder if that is the best option, because I trust them that they did everything they could and landed on that. It still doesn't ring true for me.
Yeah, I think that is the best option because I know what she's talking about, because so often, especially in Nolan's earlier films, people will just sort of shout their beliefs at the end. That's, I think, probably what he had her doing initially. And yeah, it's better if she's just saying it like more of a human. But the problem is the rest of the movie doesn't earn it. And in general, I think the movie is very juvenile. It's his most juvenile. To me, there's like nerdy film bro little boy Christopher Nolan, and there's like sophisticated English gentleman who's lived life and knows it's complex and ambiguous Christopher Nolan. And That one makes the good movies and the other one makes the bad movies. This one, just for me, is too much sort of male power fantasy. It's very juvenile. It's kind of how I thought in high school. It has like that kind of Randian stuff in it of like, he is the expert, excellent scientist, the perfect man for the job, the one that's going to save everyone. I hate how they portray the teacher as being like anti-facts, anti-history. That just reads as very right-wing to me, that, teachers are trying to police your thoughts and groupthink and change reality. And it's like, I don't see that. I don't think teachers are going to suddenly start saying the moon landing was faked. The way I look at it in our society, the people who would try to argue that the moon landing is fake in real life are the people that also hate teachers. You know what I mean? That part of it rubs me the wrong way. And then it gets even worse because looked at a certain way, that it's about a man who leaves his family behind, leaves his kids to be raised by someone else, and gets to live with a hot new wife on his own planet, like he's a Mormon or something. So I that part I don't like. It needs more. A lot of modern movies have this issue for me where not enough happens in the second act. It needs more fun and games. The Wave Planet is cool, but then I need like 2 or 3 more of those, like more surveys. I think I need to feel them go on more of a journey. It feels like we jump from that pretty quickly to sort of the third act Matt Damon stuff. And then I love the Neil deGrasse Tyson observation that from a scientific perspective, as much as this movie got right, he loves like the portrayal of black holes and stuff. He also points out it is inherently ridiculous that they would figure out how to send a good chunk of humanity through a black hole to a new planet before they figured out how to treat a crop blight. He's like, there's just no way that something we already know about, like viruses and bacteria and plants, would somehow be harder to solve than something we know very little about, black holes and faster than light travel and stuff. So yeah, it's smart in places, but dumb in other places. Very dry characters to me that don't appeal much. I guess technically it's non-linear, but not really. It's pretty linear compared to most. Like technically it's non-linear in that the climax is him kind of going back in time, but that we experience that with him in a linear way.
Pushing back against like that Nolan is a cold filmmaker. I think it's quite the opposite. I just think sometimes he just can't get a handle on it.
I would disagree because I think this is him trying to be warm and he fails. So
I feel like there's more emotion in this than like, I don't know, John Wick maybe. It's like heads and tails above the emotional category. But then
I don't know. I feel more for John Wick's dog than I do for Matthew McConaughey's daughter.
Brutal.
Okay, so your number 9 was Interstellar. My number 9 is Inception.
Ooh, big difference here. Difference here.
Okay.
I'd hate to see out of control.
Inception for me, I was kind of primed to not like it from the beginning because it didn't come out between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
It did, yeah.
So for me in the theater, I was like, this is just like not Batman. Like, I want this to be Batman. But I like it even less now. I rewatched it last night and I think it's really bad. I almost want to put it lower now that we've talked about the other two. Okay, everyone talks about how mind-bendy it is. It's not mind-bendy. It's just that the levels they're not motivated at all. As much as this movie over-explains things to death, there's no real good explanation for what levels are. When you're in the dream, you pull out a dream version of the suitcases, and the suitcases are never explained. It's some sort of drug that allows you to enter the dream world. What allows you to network with other people? What are the boundaries of the dream world? What allows you to build? What allows Ariadne to build her thing and put that in Cillian Murphy's mind and allow everyone to join her there, And then it's like, when you're in the dream, why does pulling out a dream version of the suitcase allow you to go a level deeper? And why is that necessarily any more dangerous or complex than any other part of the dream? You know, like the idea that nobody's ever gone to level 3 feels silly because you would think people would have tried that. You don't get any good sense of like how common this technology is, how it's really been implemented around the world or whatever. I think that's actually fine because maybe it's sort of like a Harry Potter or a Toy Story where if you want the logic of it to work, you keep the story kind of confined so you don't think about the broader implications too much. But then the movie does try to explain a lot. And then I think that speaks to how a lot of people's problem with this movie is it's a movie about dreams and entering dreams, and it's not that visually exciting or interesting. It makes dreams very mundane. It enforces a lot of rules about time, how to wake up, and what happens when you die in a dream. You know, a dream could have infinite possibilities. This movie just like turns dreams into a Christopher Nolan movie. And I think the action is really boring because when you're in a fake reality, the action is just not interesting because there's no stakes to killing anyone because they're not people. And so like in moments where like Joseph Gordon-Levitt races around the staircase, which doesn't make any sense, and like go and pushes the guy off and is like, paradox. It's like, who are you talking to? That guy's not real. That guy's not anything. When Tom Hardy like thumbs up the guy on the snowmobile that he throws the grenade at, you know, why are you doing that? That guy has no consciousness. Like he can't be annoyed by your antics. It makes the climax where Tom Hardy is having his brawl with the dudes in the snow fortress so uninteresting to me. I totally glaze over for all of that. I find him very annoying as a person, and so I find him very annoying in this role. I like him in Mad Max and Peaky Blinders and stuff, but in this I'm just like, shut the up, Tom Hardy. Him and Joseph Gordon-Levitt bickering, that just makes them unlikable to me. That doesn't make them like likable buddies. And then so Elliot Page playing Ariadne, super on the nose reference. If I was trying to hire a dream architect and I saw a resume that said Ariadne, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, better hire her. Like, seems like fate. I don't know why like no one comments on that. You know, it's weird that no one comments like, oh, you have the perfect name for the job we're hiring you for. It's silly. Yeah, I think Elliot Page is just really wooden in it. And he's not given much to work with. At the same time, it's an important character because she is Cobb's conscience and moral compass through the whole thing.
It's our avatar as the viewer is Ariadne.
Yeah. And so she's an important character, but she's pretty uninteresting because also half the time she has to deliver expository dialogue, like literally so bad. Like, wait, so whose subconscious are we entering right now? Like that kind of stuff that they definitely would have talked about beforehand. So yeah, even the hallway fight, which, you know, famously they made like a hallway on a turnstile so that, you know, they could, a gimbal so that they could actually be flipping around. It's kind of brief. It doesn't read as that exciting. Again, because you know who the guy he's fighting, it doesn't matter, isn't real. I do kind of enjoy the levels and getting ready for the kicks up, but then I think he kind of fucks that up in the way he shoots it and edits it. As they're coming up, they always sort of wake up into each level more quickly than I think I want them to watching it. Like, I want to feel the kick every level, and it's soft the way it's edited. It's very like, oh, now I'm awake. Oh, now we're here. And they wake up at different times and stuff, which the plot kind of necessitates, but it just doesn't feel as exciting as it should because it is set up really well, like kicking back up through the levels. But I just wish the levels were more exciting too. Like they all, you know, so this is one of two movies, and I think we can talk about this more when we get to the other one, where I just wish it was a James Bond movie directed by Christopher Nolan, and they took out the supernatural element altogether because that's the worst part of it. The action, not the action, but like the conceits of some of the scenarios are cool. And then I'm not a big Leonardo fan, especially in this kind of role. I like him in Tarantino movies. I like him when he's a kid and in Quick and the Dead and Titanic. In this, it's the DiCaprio I don't like, which is just like very generic, manly. I'm always worried and a little pissed off, Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay. I don't think the ending is ambiguous. I don't know why it would be, because everything he's shown us suggests he's fine and got out of it. He tells Maul, like, you're not enough anymore, I need to let you go. Ariadne says he'll be fine. Everything he says to Saito in the final Limbo Palace makes it seem like he understands the situation and they're both going to get out. So then the ending just feels really abrupt because to try to make it ambiguous, he cuts suddenly. He doesn't show them kicking back up, just cuts to them all waking up on the plane. So there's like some plausible deniability there. And then you just get a music montage. So none of the characters really get closure, you know, like it just shows them leaving at the airport and that's it. Also, like, why the is Cillian Murphy at baggage claim? A guy that rich? Why is he flying commercial for one? But you know, Michael Caine picks him up. That feels real. He sees his kids' faces. That was kind of implied earlier that would mean it's real.
Yeah.
So the top spinning endlessly at the end just feels cheap and like he didn't have a better way to end the movie. But I also think that speaks to how kind of weak and underdeveloped these characters are because there's almost not much to say or give them as like an epilogue. It just needs to be better. It's not good enough. It's for a Christopher Nolan movie about dreams. It's just like really blah. So tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't know. I kind of buy into most everything. Like, I think ultimately, like, I do have a lot of fun with this movie. I like the concept of the dreams, the levels. But I do think it's interesting how in this studio blockbuster, the antagonist is the, like, persistent memory of the protagonist's wife who committed suicide.
Oh yeah, I guess she is the villain, yeah, but
because she was convinced that like she didn't live in reality.
Yeah.
Like, it's quite dark. I just think that's like a very interesting antagonist and a very interesting dynamic between her and Cobb. I think Leo does do a good job of like getting me on board with his plight. Like, I want him to get home to his kids. I really do. Especially love the concept of limbo. I think it's really cool for a movie. And I think multiple of Nolan's films operate in these purgatory-esque spaces, which it always kind of like tickles me as like a fun concept of like, you know, in Inception, it's literally a limbo. But I think there are other like limbo purgatories in Nolan films, which really create this sense of, it's like a displacement of time and space, which I really find visually interesting, atmospherically interesting.
Is that the Kingdom Hearts fan in you?
Yeah.
the beach in Kingdom Hearts.
It's more complicated than any Nolan film.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Japanese people are watching this movie like, All right, so that was my number 9. What is your number 8?
Batman Begins.
Oh, how dare you. My number 8 is Oppenheimer.
8, 7, 6.
Batman Begins is not a bad film. Saying it's
Okay.
8 is sounds crazy.
Yeah, for you that's like you like most of these, so that's
yeah.
Okay.
What was
Well, for me, Oppenheimer is probably the one I kind of disagree with, like the overall sort of cultural, like more critical opinion on overall. I just found it really dry, and maybe I need a second rewatch, but maybe it's because Barbie was so fun in comparison. But I mean, the biography it's based on is like infamously dry. I think the whole idea of I have become death and his guilt just is not that interesting to me, because to me it's kind of like it's inevitable, like it was an arms race. A lot of people seem to agree with me, at least, that the atom bomb explosion is kind of underwhelming. It's one where maybe they should have done some more CGI, because it just seems kind of not that exciting, considering the whole movie was like a ticking clock leading up to it in the middle. And then after that, the movie's like real deflated for me. They basically try to make it about his sort of adversarial relationship with Robert Downey Jr.'s character. I'm not like the biggest Robert Downey fan. I find a lot of his performances kind of pretentious, and this one I think for sure he did win the Oscar, but I don't know. For me, it was like, oh yeah, I guess I see why that's sort of interesting that he hated him for crossing him that one time, but like, what did they really mean to each other to where I should care about that? Otherwise, I really don't like the like Florence Pugh nudity moment. It just feels sort of weirdly exploitative of her to me, because it doesn't really add anything. Yeah, I do kind of enjoy seeing like Benny Safdie and Jack Quaid and those guys show up in the background. Like, that's kind of fun. But yeah, it's just not, that's about all I have to say about it, because it's just really dry to me. But I respect the filmmaking of it, and none of it like really like pisses me off or annoys me, so it's right in the middle for me.
We never ever have a scene without Oppenheimer. It's like there's never a cutaway to like side characters talking about Oppenheimer. It is just Cillian Murphy all the time, and I find that to be a very interesting choice. I wonder if other if any other biopic has done that, basically, of just we're always with our subject all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's really grounds you in Cillian Murphy's performance. Love Ludwig Göransson's score in this. I think the score and editing, are what make this, how you get away with doing a nearly 3-hour long biopic about a scientist to make it watchable and interesting and even kind of intense. You see this, I believe, first in Insomnia. There's a scene where Al Pacino's character he's sleep deprived. He's in the police department, and his senses are very elevated. Like the whirring fan is like super loud. There's flashes of light, and I think it's cool to see that concept of intense perspective from the protagonist come back in Oppenheimer when he's doing the not trial. When he's being grilled and he's not letting Oppenheimer off the hook, and then you can only say that it's a panic attack of like the light becomes overexposed on him and he's like getting the flashes. And it was cool to see that on such big budget filmmaking, because I feel like that harkens back to his days of lower budget features. Yeah, yes, I do like the film. I find it pretty impressive, but yeah, quite frankly, if anyone was like, too dry, or maybe some of the Florence Pugh relationship dynamic, I don't think is very strong.
Yeah, surprised there's not a good relationship dynamic in a Christopher Nolan movie. Yeah, and we both so far have had the least to say about this, which is why I think I'd put it like in my bad section, because it's like an Academy Award winning movie, so it's not bad from like an aesthetic standpoint. It's just it's not entertaining to me. I'm very big on like a good movie is entertaining in some way. It doesn't have to be like an action movie, like Schindler's List is a good movie. It's not a thrill ride, so yeah, I don't know. It's boring. So what's your number 7?
Tenet.
My number 7 is Tenet. I'm very excited to talk about this one, but you go first because I kind of want to see what you say so I can kind of mold my comments.
You want to crash a plane, but not from the air. No, it's so dramatic.
So I'll start off by saying I went and saw this in theaters during COVID, and I'll never forget how it felt like such a big deal to go into like a theater with the mask on, like.
Yeah, mine was Shang-Chi was my first movie back.
Okay, do the touchless like ticket, and I walk into a theater and it's just me and like one other guy far away, and there was like that anxiety of just being kind of like out in a public space. But I was like, I'm a Nolan fanboy, so it's like I want to see it, and I'll never forget. I was actually so crestfallen when that movie ended because of I'm going to say it, the complicated, like, on initial viewing, complicated plot device combined with the infamous audio mixing. I was like, I can't believe I felt like I was taking a risk to see this movie and support this, and I just came away like, what was that?
Yeah.
Now, on subsequent rewatches with some subtitles, I do think it's a ride, and it's an experience. I think it starts from the jump, which a lot of his films do, like the Dark Knight prologue, the Dark Knight Rises prologue, always like starting super super hard and fast. And I don't think Tenet ever relents. I mean, it's like, we're gonna film amazing locales and this watercraft you've never seen before because you're not rich enough to have ever seen it. It's just something you start feeling. You turn your brain off, even though it's hard to turn your brain off because you're like, wait, like they just threw this suitcase backwards into a vehicle. What's going on here? But the feeling, the propulsive music, it becomes like you feel it in your body.
Yeah.
Jeremy Theobald, our first protagonist from Following, he does show up in this cameo.
Where is he in it again?
He's the snooty waiter.
Oh, that's so fun. That's like a Bruce Campbell role.
Yeah.
That's really fun. Oh man, that is so fun. And he's really good at that. Certainly not
Yeah, he is. He is.
Although I am like, why did he order food? Just to do that?
Yeah. The doggy bag, yeah.
Yeah. Just to, I think, yeah, I guess he's trying to make a ruckus in this white supremacist club.
I think the backwards, forwards, like fist fights, they're the most inventive hand-to-hand combat since like the raid. This isn't as intense, obviously, as the raid, but I just think the creativity of it is super fun to watch. You just arrive at it, I think, being like, this is fun.
Okay, I agree with everything you said. I enjoyed this a lot more. Of all the Nolan films, oh, he's so mind-bendy. Not really. Most of them, fine. This one, the opening act, the opera house sequence, is truly incomprehensible. You cannot understand what happened on a first viewing. You have to watch multiple times, and I even found articles of people like trying to understand exactly what's happening. And even when you really break it down, there's like no real way to know like what was Sator and what was Tenet. Because like the terrorists do shoot that conductor right in the chest. You know, if they were, whether they were hired by Sator or Tenet to create the situation, or the CIA. Also, I think in like a bloodier, cooler movie, like some of those sleeping people would be getting popped. You know, that would be kind of cool to see. The well-dressed man is like a plant for the CIA or for Tenet or for Sator, because ultimately, then when they get back to the van, the guys they came with take them and torture them and kill them. So those Sator's men, were those Ukrainian intelligence? So was the plant working for them or for Tenet? The plant is presumably killed. The well-dressed man is presumably killed later, but shortly after that, because Sator gets the piece. Yeah, it's incomprehensible. The first, and then the torture is confusing too, because it said, oh, that was a test. Was the test simply that the pill wasn't actually deadly? And the test was, if you ever get yourself in a situation where you need to use it, we want to see if you actually use it or not. Or was the entire situation a test? You know, like, were the torturers working for Tenet to torture him? And, you know, did they really need to pull out all of his teeth? And as we find out by the end, we know Tenet is entirely his operation and his plan. So did he have his own teeth pulled out for reasons?
Another instance, it's always struck me, our Tenet man saying, "Oh, we've reconstructed your face." I'm like, that's a crazy throwaway line.
Yeah.
Also,
okay, so that's a character actor. I don't know his name off the top of my head. He's pretty well known. He's in Insomnia. He's the partner that dies. His lines are all just like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, truth divided, I have a gesture for you. And John David Washington just takes it all in stride. He's just like, okay, sure. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I was going to say, again, of like all the pre-Batman films, it's like the person who gets tapped to come back from Insomnia of Al Pacino, Robin Williams, rest in peace. Hilary Swank is kind of like the fifth highest ranked in the cast.
Yeah.
He's like, come be our guy who explains what Tenet is.
Yeah. So yeah, the movie moves relentlessly fast, more than any of them. Inception, like, people thought Inception was a little too fast. This is like, we cannot slow down at all. This movie must always be fully sprinting. And so watching it in the theater, you're like, I'm lost already. You know, it's really, you have to watch it twice.
Yeah.
So like from there, you get like the bullet explanation, and that's Fleur Delacour from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
A great part. I think she's great in that. In the Tenet part.
Yeah, my problem with this is where you see where like this doesn't make sense. Like from the first time it's explained. Okay, you fire a bullet. Or the bullet comes back into your gun because it's moving back through time. Okay. Yeah. So how did the bullet get in the wall?
Well, it's always been there.
Yeah. And it has to have always been there for all of time, because like everyone else is moving forward in time. So there's no like moment someone could have placed it. And why would they have placed it? Like it has to have, it melts your brain to think about it. It has to have always been there since the dawn of time, which means the wall had to be there too, why would a wall exist from prehistoric times? A bigger way as he extrapolates it out to bigger and bigger action sequence, it makes less and less sense. You think about the car flipping over, right? Everyone sees the car move back in reverse, right? It flips up and moves back. So that car crash has to have been there in the middle of Ukraine since the dawn of time.
Doesn't the film address this by like there are like what's the like for lack of a better term like Tenet enabled objects?
Well, I mean all these objects have been inverted in turnstiles.
Yeah, inverted. That's right, inverted. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're inverted in the future, and then they move backward. So it has to have always been there because it moves backward, and everyone else is moving forward, so they can't disassemble it and move it back. So they can't like disassemble it and move it somewhere because they're moving forward. So that would require them to move backward. You know what I mean? But that is why I like this movie, even though it's bad, clearly, because it's fun to think about. Versus Inception, which is just, you're just like, oh, well, it's a dream and it doesn't make sense. This, you're like, this is physics. We're talking about time. So it's fun to think about why it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So, yeah, that is a big issue. And then why do the people in the future want to kill us? It's like, are they trying to colonize the past? Are they trying to like kill all of us so they can go back in time and live in a better Earth?
I think it's addressed that like the future becomes so uninhabitable, and I don't think they address why. Maybe it's like a global warming, and they're like, you people are what led to this, and we don't care if this like subsequently kills us. If we kill the past, we're just so furious we want to like kill the past for doing this to us.
Okay, that makes the most sense if they're just doing it to be spiteful and kill themselves too.
Yeah, and I think they're like, we don't know if it'll kill us, but we're just so enraged we don't care.
I don't think that's actually right though, because there are lines to the effect of like Sator being like they will live on, another world will live on.
Oh yeah.
So, but it's confusing because it's like, okay, the way they describe it, it seems like reality is going to snap and there's just going to be nothingness.
Yeah.
Or because even if it kills all life, that would still make the world uninhabitable, right? Like that would kill not just humans, but any life, I would think. Somebody I saw online was like, oh, is the idea that like they're going to kill us in the past so that we don't pollute the earth, so that in the future, the earth becomes habitable because it didn't have people in the past to pollute it. That kind of makes sense. You have to accept the grandfather paradox of that, which is that like, okay, you killed your ancestors, so shouldn't you also now be dead? And that is discussed in the movie. They're like, well, there's people in the future that believe it's sort of like the theory that the nuclear bomb would set the atmosphere on fire. The idea is like, okay, that's not true. Like there's a small chance that that's true. More than likely, we will continue to exist because grandfather paradoxes resolve themselves or something. That part I could kind of, but the fact that we have to talk about this much shows how like it's really interesting because it's a movie where this skilled big budget director is just doing things that like don't work. Like he's trying and they just don't work. You mentioned you liked the fist fight. I find the action sequences kind of like in Inception. I find them just like not very enjoyable because they are so hard to follow. But I think the worst one is the climax big battle. Buildings are going up and down and people are going into walls. First of all, he makes the really weird decision to almost not show Sator's men at all in that sequence. And so that's very confusing because like any action scene is a tug of war between two parties. So choosing to like not show the other party like really undermines the action, you know, just very simply like not seeing who's getting shot. It just looks like a training. They're running through this like very bland area, just running and shooting, and you're not seeing who they're hitting or, you know.
You see Inception too. It's like literally nameless grunts. It's Inception and Tenet is like faceless.
Well, but even in Inception, you saw them get shot. Here, you like barely see them. It's weird. And then, in that sequence, the inversion stuff doesn't work at all because you just can't tell what the fuck is happening. Like, it's so...
That's kind of, like, there is a part of Nolan which is just like, look at this cool inverted explosion.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, it's just like, that looks, it's like one inverted and one non-inverted, like, bazookas aimed at like a tower, and it's crazy to watch. I think it boils. There comes to a point where it's like it is almost without sense or logic, and it's just like a cool visual.
Yeah. Yeah. The point at which I'm like pretty fucking lost is when we get into Kenneth Branagh's like two-sided warehouse and John David Washington inverts himself and like gets in the car. That point on is where you're like, you just have to let go because like,
Yeah, absolutely. It is that part. Yeah.
yeah. So
like my bad for not having watched this like yesterday.
No, it's fine.
Once you're like a month removed from Tenet.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that, and then it's just fun to think about more. Like, okay, he has to take oxygen through the turnstile with him. Mm-hmm, they should also show them taking like food and water, because I would think if the friction doesn't work on the oxygen, then it doesn't work like for food and water too. Also, funny to think about, if you saw someone pooping or throwing up while inverted, you would see the poop go back up in them.
That is absolutely what would happen. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so this, like Inception, is the movie that I think would be better if it was just a James Bond movie and didn't have any of the like supernatural stuff in it, because it is really stylish. It has cooler locations. It's ironically like more fantastical than Inception. It has, you know, the airport stuff. That's such a great sequence when they're like robbing the airport and they're like, you know, the snooty manager is foisted by his own policy and, you know, has to go run away and hide from the gas. That's all really cool. Like you said, the speed sailing is really cool.
When they're in Mumbai and they like scale.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
That's really cool. I really like Sator, Kenneth Branagh. He's a great villain, I think. Better than any like Daniel Craig Bond villain, for the most part. Elizabeth Debicki's character I am mixed on, because I do really like her final beat where she kills him and then sunscreen jettisons him. And then I love her jumping off the boat. That's really good symbolism, because I love how like when she first sees that from the other angle, she wishes she could be that woman. And she is that woman, and that's such a cool empowering thing of like she ended up being her own hero. At the same time, she is in a bit of like the typical Christopher Nolan female character vein, where like she's like her chief characteristic is that she's a mother. That's like a bit cliche. It's especially stupid. She's so like obsessed with her kid to the point where like there's one part where they're like in the shipping container and they're like, if this happens, everyone in the world will die. And she's like, including my son? Yes, we said everyone. Like, it's just like, I don't know. So Tenet feels like a movie that he always wanted to make and like had to make. You know, his movie where he comes up with a story conceit for why he can reverse the film. You know, like he wants to play with the direction the film is going, literally the film. He gets to do that in Tenet, and it's fun to watch, but it's also confusing. And more than any of his movies, it's a movie where the characters really suffer. They're not super well developed. You know, literally we have the protagonist. So it's his time experiment movie, which makes it's just that. It's an experiment. Yeah, it's very stylish. It's fun at times. It's fun to try to make sense of it on subsequent viewings.
Yeah.
But I still think it's bad because, like, fundamentally, it is a failure of a plot, and the action doesn't actually read as very exciting to me.
Okay,
so number 6. What do you have at number 6?